Derrick Rose is retiring. It's a sad day in the NBA. And when I think about this, like there's two, I think of two things really. There's the sad element to it where there's no denying like this dude could have been one of the greatest players to ever play the game, but injuries robbed that. I mean, literally like was just on such an insanely steep upward trajectory of #1 pick, all-star, youngest MVP ever. And just like, we all were so excited to see where that could go, and the fact that injuries robbed that is such a shame. And I think it's also a shame because I think we were robbed of something truly special, not just from an individual player perspective, but like we gush over how awesome it is that LeBron was drafted #1 overall by his hometown team, and obviously a bunch of stuff happened in between them, but like ultimately did bring them a championship. And we could have had a similar storyline with Derrick Rose, and I think in some ways it could have been even cooler, even more, not necessarily impressive, but more storybook, because Derrick Rose is actually from Chicago. Like Derrick Rose was born and raised in the south side of Chicago. Like LeBron, like I know we all say like, oh, it's his hometown team, but like he's from Akron. So like the Cavs are like his adopted team, of course, but like he's from like an hour outside Cleveland. So like it's not quite the same. Like Derrick Rose, literally from Chicago, #1 pick, looked like he was on his way to doing like something similar, like where he literally could have brought a championship back to his hometown team. Like it literally would have been storybook, like #1 pick, youngest MVP, brings a championship to his hometown team. Like that just could have been so special and just so storybook in ways similar to LeBron, but also that added element of this is literally his hometown. And the fact that we never, not necessarily that we never got to see that, but the fact that we never really got to see him even try to do that, because by the time Chicago really became legitimate contenders, that's obviously when the injury started. And there's always going to be something sad about that. There's always going to be something bittersweet about that, because whether a guy's able to succeed or not in certain ways, you always want to see them have the opportunity to try. Like you always want to give them that chance to see if they can actually go on and do it. And Derrick Rose never really got that chance. And there's definitely something sucky to that. But I think the flip side to Derrick Rose's career, and I think sort of the glass half full perspective that I think I try to have, and that I think you should have, and I think it's a much better way to view his career, is that the fact that this dude had two big injuries. It was the torn ACL, but then if you remember, he missed the year 2012, 2013, but then came back and then tore his meniscus and missed most of that season as well. The fact that he came back and lasted, like I saw it on Twitter, this dude lasted 15 years in the NBA. 15 years. Like that doesn't just happen by lasting 15 years in the league doesn't just happen, right? It takes a lot of work. And I think in Rose's case, it took a lot of sacrifice from him, because you could totally see a scenario where this dude comes back and tries to like recapture who he was before. He tries to like recapture being the MVP, and he tries to, insert himself onto the teams that he goes to, and is like, no, I'm still that guy. Like, let me try and be that guy. But like, as we've seen throughout Derrick Rose's career, the dude is just so quiet and so humble that he was just always willing to sacrifice and just do whatever it took to play the game that he loved in whatever context, whatever opportunity he was given. And I think what's also so special is that, yes, obviously after leaving Chicago, he bounced around a bit, but what was so special to look back on is that he had majority of the teams that he played for, you hold him in high regard. Like he had his moments with every team. So whether it was the Knicks, I mean, the Knicks is actually funny because he had two stints in New York. The first one, he wore number 25. That was him, KP, Melo, Noah, the supposed super team. That one actually didn't go so well. He went AWOL for a game, I remember. But his second stint, he came and he helped the team. He was literally the best player in their playoff loss to the Hawks. That's how good he was. In Detroit, he averaged over 18 a game, hit that game winner against New Orleans. Minnesota, obviously the famous career high 50 points. And in all three of those steps, he was top 10 and 6 man of the year voting. Like he really carved out a niche, and like that's why all these teams have, despite maybe not necessarily doing what he did in Chicago, obviously he wasn't that same guy, but the fact that all of those teams still not just hold him in high regard as a person, but the fact that you could look back on his stint with each of those teams and say, oh, remember when he did this, actually on the court. I think that's so special for a guy who fell so low into these just incredible depths, and he had to pull himself out of to still last for a decade and a half in the NBA, and not just as a sympathy guy or end of the bench piece. No, this dude was still contributing for teams. Okay, he didn't contribute to Cleveland so much. Guess what? None of those veterans on that team really did. That's why they all got shipped out. He really just made the most of his entire career, and it definitely wasn't what we thought we were going to see from him. It definitely wasn't what we hoped we were going to see from him, but it was still really awesome and really special to watch. So like, just like, again, it's the tough balance of feeling like we were robbed from Derrick Rose's career. Like, there's still so much. Like, I do think it's unfortunate that I think he's going to be grouped with like the what if guys like Grant Hill and Tracy McGrady. I do think that's like sort of the unfortunate arc that his career has taken, but I do think it's also special that he managed to carve out a career that was definitely not what we thought we would get, but like was still plenty rich and full of memories and great times on its own. So just like, as someone who grew up as watching basketball in the 2010s, watching Derrick Rose, I'm definitely going to miss him. It sucks. It's another reminder that I'm getting older, but just like, salute to an incredible career for Derrick Rose, one where he really did he made the best of it and he made the most of it, and that's all anyone can really do. So just salute to him and happy retirement, D Rose.